The grand hall of the alien palace shimmered with treasures that seemed impossible to imagine. Gold plates were stacked like mountains, gemstones glowed in colors no human had names for, and metals hummed with an energy that made the air vibrate. The ceiling arched high above, carved with intricate designs that twisted and moved like living things. Servants and soldiers, all tall and slender with shining eyes, lined the walls in perfect symmetry. But in the center, all attention was on a single human standing alone. Captain Elias Ward did not flinch under their gaze. His armor was battered, scratched from battles that had pushed him to the edge of endurance. His chest heaved, not from fear, but from determination. He had walked into the heart of the alien king's palace knowing that a single wrong step could end his life. Yet there was something in his eyes, a calm, unshakable resolve that made the aliens whisper among themselves. The alien king sat on his throne, a giant figure draped in robes that flickered like molten fire. His face was sharp, almost too perfect, with eyes that glimmered like twin stars. He looked down at Elias and spoke, his voice echoing through the hall like a thunderclap. "You fought bravely. You crushed my armies. You humbled my generals. For your strength I offer you reward. Name it, and it is yours. Gold, worlds, power beyond imagination. Take what you desire, and it will be yours." He gestured toward the piles of treasure. Mountains of gold coins glittered in the strange alien light. Gems the size of fists radiated colors that made the air feel alive. Ships hovering silently on pedestals gleamed like predators waiting for a hunt. To any other being in the galaxy, this would have been the greatest fortune ever offered. A king himself was giving it freely. Elias looked at the treasure, and then past it, his gaze falling on something else entirely. Across the hall, half hidden by shadows, sat a young girl. Her wrists were bound in silver chains, and her eyes were wide with fear. Dust and dirt covered her clothes. She looked small, fragile, as if a gust of wind could blow her away. Yet there was a spark in her eyes, a flicker of life that had not been crushed even by the years of captivity. When Elias finally spoke, his voice was calm, but carried the weight of steel. "I don't want your treasure," he said. The hall fell silent. Even the king's laughter, which had echoed through countless planets, stopped. "I want her. Release the girl." The king's expression shifted from amusement to disbelief. His alien features twisted into something almost human, shock. "You... what?" His voice grew louder, sharper. "Do you refuse the greatest treasure any being has ever offered? You turn down worlds, wealth, ships, and you demand a prisoner? A child? Are you mad, human?" Elias took a step forward, the scars on his face catching the flickering light. "She is not a prisoner," he said. "She is a human, and no human belongs in chains. Nothing you have, no mountain of gold, no fleet of ships, can ever be worth leaving someone behind. I will not take treasure. I will not take power. I will take her." The king's eyes narrowed, a dangerous glow spreading across them. "You dare speak to me in this way? You dare defy me? You know what I am capable of?" "I do," Elias said simply, his voice steady. "I know what you are capable of, but I also know what I am capable of, and I will not leave someone to suffer when I can stop it. That is the difference between us. You see chains as power. I see them as a challenge to break." The whispers in the hall grew louder. Aliens who had never seen a human stand so boldly in front of a king exchanged glances. They had been told humans were weak, fragile creatures. Yet here was one, standing alone, refusing unimaginable wealth, facing a being who could crush him with a thought, and demanding freedom for another. The girl who had been crouched and silent shifted slightly. She lifted her head, her eyes catching Elias's. In them he saw hope, a fragile, trembling hope that had survived years of despair. She could not speak, but her gaze told him more than words ever could. She believed for the first time in years that freedom might be possible. The king leaned forward, his hands resting on the arms of his throne. "You truly value this?" fragile thing over all of this? He gestured to the treasure again, his voice trembling between rage and disbelief. Do you understand what you are risking? You could have anything, human, anything, and you throw it away for her? Elias's jaw tightened. He took another step forward. Anything is nothing if someone's life is at stake. She is not property. She is not a thing to be bought or sold. She is a person, and I will not leave her here. The king stared, silent, for a long moment as if trying to comprehend a human mind. In that silence, the girl's hope grew a little stronger, and in that moment, Elias Ward made a choice, one that would change the fate of everyone in the hall. The alien king's laughter rang through the hall, cold and sharp, cutting the silence like a blade. It was not the laugh of joy, but the laughter of someone who believed the universe belonged to him. Soldiers straightened, servants froze, and even the walls seemed to hum with tension. You refuse treasure? The king said, his voice low now, almost a hiss. Do you not understand what I offer? Mountains of gold, jewels brighter than your sun, ships that could take you to the farthest stars. Yet you demand a girl, a caged, helpless human? Elias stood firm, his chest rising and falling steadily. He could feel the heat of the king's presence, the weight of alien power pressing down like a storm. But fear did not reach him. Fear had no place here. His gaze stayed fixed on the girl, who trembled quietly, her eyes wide and filled with questions. She is not helpless, Elias said, his voice firm. His voice, and she is not a thing to be owned. You have chained her, yes, but you will not break her spirit. That is why I demand her, not your gold, not your worlds, not your treasures. The king's expression darkened. It was the expression of a predator who had never been denied, of a ruler who had never had a subject speak with such defiance. Do you think your words matter, human? You are alone. You are small. You are nothing in the face of my power. All that you see here, the treasure, the armies, the very walls of this palace, are mine. You cannot take her. You cannot defy me. You are weak. Elias's hands tightened around the hilt of his sword. Scars traced across his knuckles, but he did not move them away. I may be alone, but I am not weak, he said. You think power is in riches and armies, but real power is in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Real strength is in standing when the world tells you to bow. The king leaned forward, his towering frame casting a shadow over Elias. His voice rose, shaking the hall with rage. Do you understand what you risk? One word from me and your life ends. I could crush you, human, before your blood even hits the floor. And yet you speak of protecting her? Elias's gaze never wavered. If I did not stand for her, then what would make me different from you? You chain and destroy what you want. I choose to defend. That is what makes us human. That is why you cannot own me. The hall grew unnaturally silent. Soldiers who had spent their lives obeying the king whispered to each other, glancing nervously at the human who dared defy him. Servants who had never imagined anyone standing against the king's will shifted uneasily. No one had ever heard a human speak this way, not even in legends. The girl, still in her chains, watched him. Tears ran down her cheeks, but her chin lifted ever so slightly. In her gaze, Elias saw something fragile and yet unbroken. It was hope, the kind of hope that had survived years of fear, neglect, and pain. She had thought she was invisible, that no one cared about her at all. And now, here was this human standing against a king demanding her freedom. You do not understand, the king said, his voice cold but edged with disbelief. You could have everything. The universe bows to me, and yet you throw it away. For a single girl? She is not just a girl, Elias said, taking a small step forward, his eyes never leaving hers. She is a person, and I will not leave her to suffer. No treasure, no army, no world is worth more than a life. The king's face twisted with fury, but there was also a shadow of something else, curiosity. No human had ever spoken this way. No human had ever dared to reject his gifts so boldly. In that silence, the room seemed to hold its breath. Even the treasures on the floor seemed to shimmer in anticipation, as if the universe itself waited to see what would happen next. The girl's chains rattled as she shifted slightly. Her lips trembled and she whispered almost to herself, He will save me. Elias noticed her words and allowed himself the smallest nod, a promise in a simple gesture. He did not bow to the king, but he bowed to his own conviction. He had chosen a path that no treasure could influence, no power could sway. And in that choice he was stronger than any king, richer than any horde, and braver than any army. The king's eyes narrowed. He had met defiance before, but never with such courage. "You will regret this, human," he said, each word sharp as a blade. "You will regret choosing her over everything else." Elias's voice was calm, steady, and unwavering. "I do not regret doing what is right." For a moment the hall was silent except for the faint sound of chains clinking. The girl's eyes, wide and shining, met Elias's, and in that moment something unspoken passed between them. Trust, hope, and the first glimmer of freedom. The stage was set. The king had offered his treasure, but Elias had refused. And in refusing, he had started a conflict that could shake the palace, challenge the king, and change everything. The air in the grand hall thickened, charged with tension. The alien king rose from his throne, towering over everyone present. His robes fell away like a shadow, revealing a body of rippling muscle and plated skin that seemed impossible for any human to match. His eyes glowed with a dangerous light, and the hum of energy radiating from him made the floor tremble beneath Elias's boots. "You dare defy me?" the king growled, his voice deep and resonant. "You turn down my treasure. You insult my power. You claim to protect the weak. Do you know what you are up against, human?" Elias did not flinch. He stepped forward, the worn leather of his boot squeaking slightly on the polished floor. "I know exactly what I'm up against," he said, his voice steady. "I'm up against someone who believes life can be measured in gold and fear. I'm up against someone who thinks chains can hold a spirit. I am here to show that even in the face of your power, courage and justice are stronger than fear." The king's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Bold words. Do you truly believe you can stand against me? You are only a human, weak, small, fragile. One strike and you will crumble." Elias's hands tightened around his sword. The blade, battered and scarred from countless battles, gleamed faintly in the alien light. "Maybe," he admitted quietly, "but I have faced armies, storms, and death itself. I have learned that true strength is not in size, or in power, or in gold. It is in the choice to fight for what is right, even when the world tells you to run or bow. I fight for her. That makes me stronger than you realize." The hall seemed to grow still. Soldiers and servants shifted uneasily, their long limbs frozen, as they watched this human speak with a courage no alien had ever dared. The king's glare swept the room, but his words faltered. No one had ever looked at him this way. Not with defiance, not with conviction. "You believe in this principle of yours," the king said slowly, almost as if testing the truth of it. "And yet, principles cannot save you here. You are alone. You have nothing but words. And I am everything." Elias took another step forward. His eyes met the girl's, and he saw her trembling, yet looking at him with a fragile hope. Her chains rattled as if echoing his resolve. He spoke softly, yet every word was firm. "I do not fight for myself. I fight for her. And that is why I will not fail." The king's expression darkened, rage flickering in his alien features. "Foolish human. You think your honor can protect you? You think your loyalty to one fragile creature can defeat me?" Elias's gaze did not waver. "It already has," he said quietly, and the words struck like lightning in the hearts of those who listened. Because courage, loyalty, and the will to do right, these are not weaknesses. These are the things you can never understand. They are the things that make humans human. The girl's eyes shone with tears, but they were tears of relief. She whispered under her breath, almost to herself, He really will save me. She had spent years in darkness, in silence, believing that no one could care for her. And now here was a man who risked everything for her. The king's form seemed to shiver with fury and disbelief. He had never been challenged in this way. Every subject he had ruled, every world he had conquered had bowed to his will. Yet this human, small, fragile, yet unyielding, stood in defiance. You speak of justice, the king said, his voice trembling with anger. You speak of courage, and yet you are nothing. You have no armies, no ships, no power. And still you think you can command me? Elias's hand brushed against the hilt of his sword, ready. His voice was calm but carried the weight of his determination. I do not command you, I simply choose not to bow to you. You may have power over worlds, over gold, over fear, but you do not have power over me. You do not decide what I value. That choice is mine, and my choice is her freedom. The hall went silent. Even the shimmering treasures and the hovering ships seemed to pause as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Aliens whispered to each other, shocked that one human could speak with such defiance. Soldiers shifted uncomfortably. Servants exchanged glances of astonishment. No one had ever seen a human speak to the king this way. The girl, still bound, trembled but lifted her head. For the first time in years, she felt something stir inside her, a fragile hope, a feeling that freedom might finally be possible. Her eyes met Elias's and she understood. This human, this man, was willing to face the impossible for her. The king's voice broke the silence again, sharp as a blade. You will regret this, human. Your courage is nothing but a foolish gamble. And when you fail, she will remain mine, and your bones will rot beneath my palace. Elias's gaze remained, steady. Maybe, he said softly, but I will not regret standing for what is right. Even if I fall fighting. And that is more than any king can ever claim. A low hum of tension filled the hall. The stage was set. Words had been exchanged. Conviction had been laid bare. And now, the clash of wills, the human against the alien king, was inevitable. The silence in the grand hall was heavy, broken only by the faint clinking of the girl's chains as she shifted nervously. The alien king's eyes burned like twin suns, and every inch of his towering frame radiated menace. He leaned forward on the throne, his claws tapping rhythmically against the armrest. So, human, he said slowly, his voice a deep, echoing growl. You claim to fight for her. You claim to value her life more than any treasure. If that is true, then prove it. If you are willing to risk everything for her, then face me in combat. Win, and she walks free. Fail, and she will remain mine forever. And your body, your human body, will decorate these halls for centuries. Elias felt the weight of the king's words, heavy as a mountain, pressing down upon him. He glanced at the girl. Her face was pale, but her wide eyes held a fragile glimmer of hope. She had been alone for too long, chained and afraid, with no one to care for her. Now, for the first time, someone had chosen her over everything else. That someone was him, and he could not fail her. I will fight, Elias said simply, his voice steady. He gripped the hilt of his sword, feeling the familiar worn leather beneath his fingers. Every scar on his arms and hands told a story of battles survived and friends lost. But none of those battles mattered now. This was not for glory, not for wealth, not for honor. It was for her. The king rose fully, casting off his robes like molten fire. His body was massive, plated with alien armor that seemed to shimmer with energy. A long spear of black metal appeared in his hand, humming with deadly power. It was a weapon designed to kill armies, not a single human. The air around it crackled with energy, and the ground trembled slightly with its presence. You understand what you face, human? The king asked, his voice almost gentle now, though the danger behind it was clear. You are alone. I am everything you are not. Strength, speed, energy, power beyond your imagination. One mistake and you die. I understand, Elias said, raising his sword. It was chipped and scarred, but it was his, and it had seen him through more wars than anyone could count. I am not afraid, and I will not stop. Not for treasure, not for glory, only for her. The girl watched him, her heart pounding. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Be careful." But her words carried faith. The first real faith she had felt in years. Elias met her gaze, and with a small nod, he promised her in silence that he would not fail. The king swung his spear, with a speed that blurred in the dim light. Elias rolled forward, narrowly avoiding the strike, feeling the wind of the weapon's power brush past him. The floor cracked where the spear struck, sending shards of alien stone scattering like glass. The human's sword flashed, a defiant spark against the black metal of the alien spear. "You are fast," the king said, circling, his eyes gleaming. "But speed cannot save you. One strike, one misstep, and you are gone." Elias dodged, rolled, and countered, his movements precise and calculated. His arms ached, his chest burned with exertion, but he did not falter. Every swing, every parry was fueled not by anger or pride, but by a determination deeper than any treasure could buy. He was fighting for someone else's life, and that made him unstoppable in ways the king could not understand. The soldiers and servants in the hall watched in astonishment. Some had seen humans fight armies, but never like this, never against a single being who seemed unstoppable. The human moved with courage and skill, dodging impossible strikes, countering with accuracy and determination. His eyes were fixed on the king, yet he never looked away from the girl, never forgot why he fought. "You truly value her more than anything," the king said, his voice low, almost grudging respect threading through the menace. "Many would not. Most would take gold, most would take life. You are different." "I fight for what is right," Elias said, his sword flashing against the king's spear again. "I fight because leaving her in chains would make me less than human, and I will not allow that." The girl's chains rattled with hope as she watched him. She whispered a prayer under her breath, believing for the first time in years that freedom might be possible. Every strike Elias blocked, every step he dodged, was a message. She was worth the risk. She was worth the fight. The stage was set for the ultimate test, not of strength alone, but of courage, conviction, and the human spirit. One man, armed with nothing but determination and a battered sword, faced a king who commanded the power of worlds. The air in the throne room was thick with tension and energy. The alien king's spear hummed like a live wire, and every movement sent sparks of power skittering across the polished floor. Elias Ward tightened his grip on his sword, feeling the familiar texture of the worn leather hilt beneath his hands. His muscles ached from dodging the king's attacks, and blood trickled down his arms from shallow cuts. But he did not falter. Every strike, every roll, every parry was driven by one purpose: saving the girl. The king struck again, faster than anything Elias had faced before. The black spear whipped through the air with lethal precision, crashing down just inches from the human's shoulder. Elias rolled forward, feeling the heat of energy singe the back of his armor. He countered with a quick slash, sparks flying as his blade struck the king's plated chest. The alien growled, a sound that shook the walls and made the air vibrate. "You are persistent," the king said, circling him. "But persistence cannot save you." Elias dodged another strike, feeling the weight of exhaustion pressing on him. Every breath burned, every movement felt heavier. His body screamed to stop, to fall, to surrender. But he looked at the girl. Her eyes, wide with hope and terror, were fixed on him. She had seen what fear and power could do to a human, and yet, she believed. She believed that he would not give up. And that belief gave him strength no spear, no power, no treasure could ever take away. "I will not fail," Elias shouted, rolling under a spinning strike. His sword met the king's spear again, clanging with a metallic scream. Sparks rained down around them like fire from the heavens. "I fight for what is right, not for glory or treasure." The king's eyes narrowed, anger flashing. "You dare lecture me?" He struck again, the spear a blur. Elias barely twisted, aside feeling the wind whip past his face. "You are a fool, you cannot win." Elias gritted his teeth and lunged, his sword striking a gap in the king's armor. A spark of alien energy arced around the blade, and the king roared in pain. Elias staggered back, breathing hard, but a spark of hope ignited inside him. He was not just fighting for himself. He was fighting for someone who had no one else. He was fighting for freedom, for life, for justice, and that made him unstoppable. The girl's chains rattled as she rose slightly, her hands gripping the silver links. Tears ran down her cheeks, but her lips trembled in a whisper. "You can do it. You can save me." Her voice carried across the room, small, but filled with faith. Elias caught her gaze and nodded, silently promising her that she would be free. The king struck again, his attacks now faster, stronger, fueled by fury and disbelief. Elias ducked, rolled, parried, and countered, moving with every ounce of skill and instinct he had honed over years of war. He was bruised, bleeding, and exhausted, but he never stopped. Every swing, every dodge, every step was a message. He would not leave her behind. "You are stronger than I expected, human," the king growled, momentarily pausing, his chest heaving. "But strength alone will not save her. You cannot defeat me." Elias steadied himself, blood trickling down his forehead, sweat stinging his eyes. "I don't need to defeat you," he said between breaths. "I just need to stand for what is right. I fight for her." He lunged forward with one final, desperate strike. The king moved to counter, but for the first time he hesitated. The human's courage, his determination, and the unwavering focus on protecting the girl struck something deep in the alien king. Something that no weapon or treasure could ever teach. Elias's sword connected with the king's chestplate, again, sparks flying brighter than before. The king roared, staggering backward, and for the first time his massive form faltered. The hall fell silent. The soldiers, servants, and even the treasures themselves seemed to pause, watching the impossible unfold. One human, battered and bleeding, facing a king who commanded the power of worlds, refused to yield. His courage was louder than any roar, his will stronger than any blade. The girl's eyes shone brighter as she whispered, He will save me." And in that moment, Elias knew she was right. He had survived not because of skill alone, but because of what he fought for. Not treasure, not glory, but life, hope, and freedom. The king steadied himself, his glare sharp, but for the first time, a flicker of respect shone in his eyes. He had underestimated the human spirit, and it had cost him more than he had imagined. The battle was not just of strength. It was a battle of will, courage, and heart. And Elias Ward, human and unyielding, was proving that sometimes even the smallest beings could defy kings, challenge empires, and protect what truly mattered. The throne room was quiet now, broken only by the shallow, uneven breaths of Elias and the faint hum of alien energy. The battle had ended, but the weight of what had just happened pressed down on everyone present. The alien king, staggered and wounded, had been forced to step back. His spear, once a symbol of unstoppable power, now rested in his trembling hands. For the first time, the king realized that strength alone could not command the human spirit. Elias did not hesitate. Blood dripped from cuts along his arms and forehead, his armor battered and dented. Each step toward the girl felt heavier than the last, but he moved with purpose. The chains around her wrists rattled faintly as he approached, a sound that carried a lifetime of suffering and hope all at once. "Hey," Elias said softly, kneeling before her. His voice was calm, steady, a stark contrast to the chaos of the battle. "You're safe now. You don't have to be afraid anymore." The girl's eyes widened, a mixture of disbelief and cautious hope shining in them. She shook slightly, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Really? Really?" Elias smiled faintly, though his face was streaked with blood and sweat. "Yes. I promised you freedom, and I keep my promises." With a careful hand, he reached for the chains. The silver links were heavy, cold, and strong, but Elias pulled with steady determination. Metal groaned and snapped, clattering to the floor. The girl gasped, tears spilling down her cheeks, and for the first time in years, she felt the weight of captivity lift from her wrists. Her sobs were soft at first, then louder, a mixture of relief, joy, and disbelief. She fell forward into Elias's arms, trembling, her body small and fragile but alive. I thought no one would ever save me, she whispered. You're not alone anymore, Elias said, holding her firmly, yet gently. I promised. I would fight for you. I always keep my promises. The girl clung to him, her tears soaking into his armor. She had been told her life meant nothing, that humans were selfish, that hope was dangerous. And yet, here was one human, a stranger, who had risked everything for her. She had witnessed him face a king, stand against impossible odds, and never waver. And now, she could feel what she had almost forgotten: trust, care, and the power of being valued. The soldiers and servants who had watched the fight unfold whispered among themselves. Some were shocked, some confused, but all could not deny what they had seen. A human had stood alone against a king, and in doing so, had proven something the aliens had never understood. Courage, loyalty, and the will to protect the weak could surpass any army, any treasure, any power. The king, still on his feet, regarded the scene with a mixture of anger and disbelief. You risked everything. For her? He said slowly, his voice quieter than before, almost thoughtful. You threw away all riches, all glory, all power? For a single life? Yes, Elias said simply, never letting go of the girl. Because a life is worth more than anything. Treasure can be taken, armies can fall, kingdoms can crumble, but a life once lost can never be replaced. She was worth the fight. The girl's sobs softened into quiet sniffles. She raised her head and looked at Elias, really looked at him. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Thank you for not leaving me behind." Elias offered a faint, tired smile. No one should ever be left behind. Not if I can help it. For a moment, the throne room seemed to hold its breath. Aliens and humans alike could feel it. A human had chosen another human over all the wealth and power of a king. And that choice, that simple act of courage and love, had changed the room, the palace, and even the king himself. The girl, now free, clutched Elias's hand as he helped her to her feet. She looked around at the hall, at the glittering treasure and the defeated king, and shook her head in disbelief. All this, and you didn't care? Elias shook his head. It's worthless if it comes at the cost of someone's freedom. I would rather walk away empty-handed than leave someone to suffer. Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of hope, relief, and gratitude. She realized that she had been given more than freedom. She had been given proof that someone could truly care, truly fight, and truly protect her. Elias glanced at the king, then back at the girl. Come on, he said gently. Let's get out of here. It's over. And as they walked toward the exit, the palace seemed to shift in subtle ways. The walls, the treasures, the air itself felt different. A human had fought, and in doing so had reminded everyone present what true courage and humanity meant. The palace was quiet now, the echoes of battle replaced by a stillness that seemed almost sacred. Elias Ward and the girl walked together through the grand halls, their footsteps soft against the polished floor. She had finally shed her chains, and though her arms and wrists were sore, her spirit felt lighter than it had in years.